When you guys were cheering more for her, I was a little bit upset. So next time please, nobody expected this. Arena Sabalenka had just walked off the court after a dominant win 6-1, 6-4 and the world was ready to applaud. Instead, she grabbed the microphone and said something that stopped everyone cold. When you guys were cheering more for her, I was a bit upset. Next time please go for me. Let that sink in. This wasn't a player on a losing streak desperately grasping for attention. This was the world number one, 25 wins, just one loss in 2026, a three-time champion already this season, standing on her own stage and telling the crowd they were cheering for the wrong person. Bold, absolutely. But what made that moment truly explosive wasn't what she said. It was why she felt the need to say it at all. Because just days before that, something had quietly shifted in Madrid. Something nobody saw coming. At the Laureus World Sports Awards 2026, Sabalenka won Sportswoman of the Year and in the same breath admitted she wanted to vanish from the spotlight. Meanwhile, across the room, 21-year-old Eala walked in wearing a breathtaking Filipino gown designed by her own uncle and owned every single second of it. No hiding, no shrinking, just pure cultural pride on a global stage. Two athletes, two completely opposite energies, and the city of Madrid was about to feel the difference. 2 days later, IA stepped onto the Arancha Sanchez Stadium and took apart Anastasia Pavlyuchenkova 6-3, 6-3 with Filipino fans roaring from the stands and representatives from the Philippine embassy watching live. Then mid-interview, she switched into flawless Spanish and told the crowd exactly what they wanted to hear. "I love Madrid." The crowd lost it. The moment went viral within hours. She hadn't just won a match. She'd announced herself to the entire world. And then the tournament made a decision that nobody could quite explain. Her next match against Elise Mertens was moved to a smaller outer court. No packed stadium, no roaring crowd, just a fraction of the atmosphere that had launched her into the spotlight. The buzz that had been building for days quietly squeezed into a corner of the complex. The result followed the energy. She lost 2-6, 1-6. But before the final point, she walked to the umpire's chair mid-match and said clearly, "First of all, please let me speak." That wasn't drama. That was a player refusing to be made invisible, refusing to let the moment be taken from her without a fight. Now here's the image that tells you everything about what really happened in Madrid. While Eala's fans were packed into Court 5, unable to breathe, unable to recreate what they'd built 2 days earlier, Arena Sabalenka was playing simultaneously on the massive Manolo Santana Stadium. Full capacity, every seat taken. And still, she felt the crowd's energy wasn't hers. That's not a coincidence, that's a story. Eala came into this tournament ranked 44th in the world. Fresh off a career high of 29, the highest any Filipino woman has ever climbed in WTA history. But none of her fans were there for a number. They were there for something you can't rank. The feeling of watching history happen in real time. Her uncle Ridella, the man who designed that iconic dress, said he's proud to be known simply as Alex Eala's Tito. Think about that. That's not just family loyalty. That's cultural movement. And when the tournament moved her to an outer court, they didn't kill that energy. They just displaced it. It spilled out through the hallways into the atmosphere all the way to the main arena where Sabalenka eventually called it out on the microphone in front of everyone. Here's the bigger picture though. This wasn't Sabalenka's first clash with forces outside her control. Earlier this season, she publicly pushed back at a tournament director over comments about withdrawal penalties, calling them ridiculous and questioning whether she'd even return to the event. Now the roles have quietly reversed, and the same player who once threatened to boycott a tournament is now being challenged by a crowd she can't control either. That symmetry isn't random. It reveals something real, a growing tension between demanding the spotlight and earning it. And while all of this was unfolding, there was a spectacular exhibition at the Santiago Bernabeu Stadium. Nadal, Sinner and others turning tennis into a global celebration, pulling millions of eyes toward the sport. Sabalenka sat it out, saying she wanted to focus on competition. Understandable. But symbolically, while everyone else was expanding what tennis could be, she stepped away from the biggest room in the building. The contrast wrote itself. Greg Rusetsky, former world number 4, one of the sharpest analytical minds in the sport, watched Eala's loss and didn't reach for sympathy. He pointed to one word: resilience. In tennis, that word isn't comfort, it's a projection. It's what separates the players who flash briefly from the ones who build something that lasts, because what happened in Madrid wasn't just about scheduling. It was a misread of reality. The Philippine embassy showed up. Fans traveled across continents. The energy inside the Arancha Sanchez Stadium on her first match day wasn't something a tournament manufactured. It was something people brought. And the WTA is starting to notice that this fan base isn't a trend, it's a foundation. From here, IA heads into the Catalonia Open as a 6th seed, then the Italian Open, then the French Open, and every tournament from this point forward faces the same unavoidable question. What do you do with a player whose following is bigger than her draw position? Because Sabalenka won in Madrid, but the story followed Eala home. That inversion says everything. Real crowd power. The kind that crosses oceans, mobilizes communities, and fills stadiums without needing permission isn't something a tournament assigns. It's something people build together. And the Filipino fan base didn't wait for a ranking to tell them when to believe. They showed up early, they showed up loud, and they showed up together. So if Madrid was just the preview, what happens when she finally steps onto a court that can actually hold the weight of what's behind her? The sport might not be ready for that answer yet. Drop your prediction below, and if you want to be here when this story reaches its next chapter, make sure you don't miss it, or miss it.